Another fun story out of the NFL is who's going to win the Super Bowl this year? The Chiefs have been eliminated from contention, and they've dominated the AFC for years. Joe Burrow and the Bengals are the only team that has reached a Super Bowl other than the Chiefs for a while now, and they've also been eliminated from contention. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens are looking like it's less likely that they'll make the playoffs. No one really thinks Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers can do it. So the natural thought is this has to be Josh Allen and the Bills' year. And I agree. If you're Josh Allen and the Bills, this is your year to get through the AFC. Take a look at this. Only 6 quarterbacks in the last 22 years have been represented out of the AFC. Tom Brady in a whole bunch, Patrick Mahomes in a whole bunch, Peyton Manning in a few, Roethlisberger in a couple, and then Burrow and Flacco once each. Here's the list year by year. So look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for Mahomes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or not 8 for Brady. And then 1 for Burrow, 1 for Flacco right there, 2012. And then Peyton Manning with 2 with the Broncos and 2 with the Colts, so 4. And then Big Ben 3. So that's pretty wild. Who's it going to be this year? Is it going to be Lamar Jackson? Probably not. Is it going to be Drake May and the Patriots? I just don't think so. Is it going to be Bo Nix and the Broncos? I just don't think so. Those are really, really solid teams. I just think it'll be hard for them to overcome that hump, get over that hump in their first time ever in the playoffs. It's rare. It happens, but it's rare that a young quarterback gets over the hump their first time in the playoffs. So I think Bo Nix and Drake May are the real deal. I think those teams are the real deal. I think next year they're going to be extremely dangerous. I think this year they're dangerous as well, but I just don't know that I see them beating Josh Allen and the Bills in the playoffs. I think the pressure will be at a level where Josh Allen will be able to perform and they will make a mistake or two that they would not have typically made in the regular season. That's my hunch. That's what I think will happen. So my guess is that the Bills will be in the Super Bowl this year out of the AFC. And I'm going to say right now that they'll be facing the Rams and Matthew Stafford. And I think there's a very high likelihood that Stafford and the Rams get their second Super Bowl victory. And that leads me to ask the question, what will that mean for Matthew Stafford and his legacy? If he wins the MVP this year, because he's well on track for that, it's him or Josh Allen, and I personally would give it to Matthew Stafford. In fact, let's pull up their stats live while we're sitting here talking about it. All right, so going by QBR, we'll default it to that first. Matthew Stafford is 4th, Josh Allen is 6th. Let's go now by quarterback rating, or passer rating rather. Stafford number 1, Drake May 3, Josh Allen 4. These are kind of the guys I think are in the hunt for MVP. I'd say are those 3, Drake May, Matthew Stafford, and Josh Allen. I think Stafford is the guy. Let's just go by yards. Stafford at the top of the list for those guys that are actually in the hunt because Dak Prescott's not going to win MVP. He's leading the league, though, in yards. Let's go for touchdowns. Stafford with a huge lead in touchdowns. Only 5 interceptions for Matthew Stafford. Josh Allen has 10 with 25 touchdowns. Massive advantage for Stafford in the touchdown to interception ratio. Now, if we go into rushing yards, obviously Josh Allen's a much bigger threat to run the ball than Stafford is. And here's the thing. A lot of people say that Josh Allen doesn't have a ton of weapons. Yeah, he does. He's got 2 great tight ends. He's got a fantastic running back, one of the top 5 running backs in the league right now. So he has weapons. He doesn't have the same level of weapons that Matthew Stafford has, but he has good weapons. Let's not act like he's got a bunch of scrubs out there. So to me right now, the MVP should be Matthew Stafford. I also think they're favorites to win the Super Bowl. So let's say Matthew Stafford wins the MVP, wins another Super Bowl, and is Super Bowl MVP. Where would that put Matthew Stafford on the all-time list? Because I don't think anybody has had him in their even top 15, 20 quarterbacks all time. But now all of a sudden, with the Rams for a few years, 2 Super Bowls, an MVP, Super Bowl MVPs, all of a sudden, and he continues to rack up stats, because the stats are obviously a big part of the puzzle. Does that put Stafford in the top 10 quarterbacks all time? 2 rings, an MVP? Does it put him ahead of a guy like a Brett Favre, or at least a Dan Marino who doesn't have a ring? I don't know. There's an argument to be had there. It's very interesting because Matthew Stafford was in Detroit for so long, just not getting it done. He gets with a good offensive guru coach in Sean McVay, and all of a sudden, he looks like he could be a true Hall of Fame level guy, because at the end of his career, again, if they win the Super Bowl this year and if he wins MVP, those are going to be 2 massive notches on his belt and tallies in his side of the column to put him in the Hall of Fame and to look at him as a top 15 quarterback of all time. He's not going to be up there. I mean, the upper echelon is, of course, Tom Brady, Joe Montana, Patrick Mahomes, Peyton Manning. Those are your 4 best quarterbacks of all time right there. Then there's a big step down, and there's a lot of good arguments to be made for other guys like a Terry Bradshaw or a Troy Aikman or a John Elway or a Drew Brees, players like that. And I think Stafford would be kind of in the level just below those guys. So there might be the upper 4, then maybe there's 10 more. I think Stafford's right in the mix for that 15th spot. If he can win another ring this year and an MVP, I think you undeniably put him in the top 20 all time, possibly even higher. Yeah, I mean, Stafford right now is 8th all-time in yards passing. He's 7th all-time in passes completed, and he's 9th all-time in touchdown passes. I'm sorry, if you add another Super Bowl ring and an MVP to this already massive resume as far as individual statistics go, giving him 2 rings and an MVP, is he top 10 all-time? I think there's a very valid argument for that. Let's go through this list. Let's just look at let's look at this list. This is the all-time leaders in passer rating, and let's just say who's ahead of Matthew Stafford all-time right now. If they were to end their careers today, or if their career's already over, and if Stafford ended his career after this season with an MVP and with the Super Bowl, another Super Bowl win, where would he be all-time compared to these guys? Aaron Rodgers, he'd still be behind him. Lamar Jackson, I think if they both retired today, or at the end of the season, and you give Stafford an MVP and another Super Bowl, I think I'd put Stafford ahead of Lamar. Patrick Mahomes is ahead. Burrow, Stafford would be ahead of him. Russell Wilson, Stafford would be ahead of him. Deshaun Watson, of course, Stafford would be ahead of him. Drew Brees, I think Drew Brees would still have a slight advantage over Stafford. Dak Prescott, for sure, Stafford ahead of him. Garoppolo, lame. Tom Brady, of course, ahead of him. Tony Romo, Stafford would be ahead of him. Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff, Jordan Love. He'd be ahead of all those guys. Steve Young, you start having an argument right there at the Steve Young mark. Who's better all time, Steve Young or Matthew Stafford? Peyton Manning would be ahead of him. Tua, that's laughable. Justin Herbert, Phillip Rivers, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Kurt Warner. He'd be ahead of all these guys. He's down there ironically tied with Joe Montana for passer rating. Again, this is just passer rating. There's a ton of different stats. I personally like QBR the best. It's a fairly newer one. I think it tells a better story for the full ability of a quarterback. Time, down, distance, situation. I think it better evaluates all of that than passer rating does. But for the sake of just looking at passer rating and going through, I think you have a very solid argument for Matthew Stafford being a top 10 quarterback all time. If he wins another Super Bowl this year and gets an MVP, very good argument he's top 10 all time.